Thank you so much, Patricia, and apologies for the slight interruption there. But this is also extraordinarily wonderful timing. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce Alejandro Frid, who joins us. I'll just give him a moment to come on. Hello, Alejandro, you're very welcome. Oh, okay. So Alejandro, my name is Rachel Sweeney. We've been talking and communicating yourself with Maria and myself. You're joining us here today and you are on a large screen, I'm afraid. We have a blended program today, which is of course some of us here in the space, and we join you from Ballyvaughan, which is in County Clare in west of Ireland. And you're coming in kind of halfway through, which is perfect timing. And we have had some presentations about wild bathtubs. We've had presentations about ice and the kind of material properties of Licking Lake as it changes from one state to another. And we will continue on this afternoon with some more presentations. And so you're very, very welcome, Alejandro. And I will just very briefly introduce you to everyone. I have lost my notes. I will be very honest. I'm going to ask Maria to prompt me in this. I had it all beautifully written out, but it's gone somewhere in the background. So Alejandro Frid, Dr. Alejandro Frid joins us from Northern British Columbia, where he works very much with the Indigenous communities and looking at questions of the Anthropocene, and also looking, I suppose, at timelines that have been gathered across heritage practices passed from generation to generation, living with a much more longer maybe timeline of what it is to work through the kind of currents of the ocean. And he has talked and has written a lot about marine diversity and biodiversity. His latest book is called Changing Tides: An Ecologist Making Peace with the Anthropocene. I'm sure I haven't got it exactly right there. It is in my bag. I could actually, his latest book is absolutely beautiful and a lovely book to just read, and sort of I've been taking it to bed with me and just really enjoying kind of dipping in and out of it. So Alejandro, you're very, very welcome. Thank you so much. I'm sure your timeline is probably late enough. And this is Maria here, who joins us also.
I'd like to say how we arrived at meeting Alejandro, because the world is incredibly small. Because Dara here, who's going to present to us later, Dara Scusa, her family actually are in Vancouver and drink the water and fish in the place where Alejandro is working. Her daughter-in-law is from there. So we were working, of course, on this, how we are all linked together. So that was the choice. And then when we read the book, we thought this is an amazing link. So you're very welcome and thank you for joining us.
So we'll hand over to you, Alejandro. And you're on mute at the moment.
Okay. Everyone can hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Wonderful. It's a real pleasure to be here. A little early in my part of the world, but it's still a great opportunity to communicate across the ocean. So to set us off for this the conversation that's going to follow, I just want to read a little bit from Changing Tides, just for about 5 minutes or so. And I want to read you something from chapter 2. But before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about the first chapter, which is called Gravity Suspended. And in that chapter, you immediately go underwater in the central coast of British Columbia through a dive to survey rockfishes, which are a very culturally significant, ecological important group of fishes. And in the process of that dive, the chapter establishes my positionality as a non-Indigenous scientist working with Indigenous people. But it also frames the main question examined by the book, which is, are humans inherently destructive? So with that, let me take you into chapter 2, which is called Resisting Least Resistance. I had to write to change my story, not the one of where I came from, but the one of where I stood and was willing to go. That is why my first book, a collection of letters to my daughter about the state of the world and our possible futures took hold of me. It refused to let go until the tumble of words found its own stillness. I too had bought into the story that humans destroy all living things. This convenient ideology granted me the self-justification to detach from deeper inquiry into what humans actually were or could be. Then I realized that such a negative view of my own species could become my daughter's downfall and was fast becoming mine. To be fair, my negativity was not entirely off base. I am an ecologist, active in research, and well-versed in the climate change literature. I read and write scientific papers, collect and analyze data, and try to understand how ecosystems respond to the different ways in which people carry themselves in the world, from destructive and unaware to gentle and intentional. That means that, by profession, I am cursed with inside knowledge in intimate detail of the damage caused by human actions on the planet. During a forest walk amidst centuries-old Douglas fir trees, I cannot ignore the exotic plants which humans have thoughtlessly brought from other continents in recent centuries. And these plants have invaded the understory, displacing native species. While scuba diving among rocky reefs, I am haunted by the absence of large predatory fishes, an ecological vacuum created by industrial fishers. During a mountain hike, an open view of the sky triggers thoughts about how our fossil fuel emissions have altered the chemical composition of the atmosphere for centuries to come, with dismal repercussions for all living things. But that is only one side of my story. By profession, I also carry the gift of seeing the living world in its wondrous and interconnecting details. To show you what I mean, let me take you back to a recent September morning near my home on the temperate coast of British Columbia, Canada. I was out on the ocean in my kayak. It was a day off, and I was allowing my curiosity to chart its own course. I drifted towards an immature turkey vulture. The big black bird stood, immobile and stately, at the edge of the rocky shore. It stared past me, out towards the sea, where the tide was beginning to run against a slight southerly wind, stacking water into steeper waves. The vulture's black head and face were smooth and iridescent, its head featherless to allow for plunging headfirst into dead mammals' body cavities to feed on entrails, reflected the morning light. My eyes and nose searched for the rocks, searched for signs of a dead seal or sea lion that might have attracted the bird. I found none. Yet the sheer act of looking made me wonder how scavengers, like the turkey vulture, might transport energy and nutrients between ecosystems. My mind began to connect images of other ecologists capturing through careful experiments in their own drive to understand natural mysteries. Herring schools leaving hydrodynamic trails, the liquid equivalent of scent, expressed as subtle yet lingering turbulence in the water. Seals and sea lions immersed in the pitch dark of night, using their whiskers as sensors to follow those trails and feed on those herring. Then I remembered that a few years back and close to this spot, I had seen a massive California bull, sea lion bull, dead on the rocks, half a dozen vultures sticking their heads into its body. All of this made me wonder whether vultures feeding on dead seals and sea lions and nesting in forested hills like the one behind my house might fertilize through their feces upland trees and shrubs with nutrients that originated in herring. This idea, I realized, could be tested using stable isotopes, the same chemical technique that helped ecologists understand that bears fertilize the forest with the carcasses of salmon captured in streams and dragged into the bushes. The thought was exciting, and I really needed that. You see, the sea surface temperature that day was 21 degrees Celsius, unusually high for the season, and an obvious symptom of climate change. By focusing on the natural history around me, I could focus on the pulsing living planet that we still have. rather than on the pessimistic scenarios that hover in the shadows of many of my work days. Days in which reconnecting with the earth boosts our motivation to keep going are not unusual in my own life and that of my colleagues. Such days keep us from going crazy as we grapple with climate change and the disruption of ecosystems caused by, yes, humans. Our lived experience confirms that bad news may be a part of modern ecology, but so are wonder and the possibility of good news. British entomologist Miriam Rothschild said it best. For someone studying natural history, life can never be long enough. That is as true today as it was millennia ago, when humans first learned that tracks on the ground tell the stories of animals, that insects and birds pollinate the flowers that yield delicious fruit.